Welcome to the Hawkins Observer, a podcast where two half-lifelong friends recap and analyze every episode of Stranger Things as we prepare for the release of the final season this November.
As always, we'll give you a scene-by-scene recap discussing the plot and developments, as well as sharing our thoughts, memories, and reactions.
In this episode, we pick up where we left off as we hope to find out how Will is going to spy on the monster. And we have a few updates to make in our book of relationships. Jonathan and Nancy need to be updated. Lucas and Max need to be updated. Even Dustin and Steve needed updating in our books. But the most worrying update we need to make is Will and the Shadow Monster.
So grab your buddy and maybe a spiked bat to be safe, and join us for season 2, episode 6, The Spy.
Ooh. Before we begin, it goes without saying that every like we've received so far, we've taken to heart. Every comment you guys have left, it means so much to us. So thank you, watcher and listener, for doing that. If you haven't already, it takes you no time, but it means the world to us. So please like and subscribe and comment.
We just get those butterflies in our tummy.
Every time.
Even if it's just me and you liking them. It's like, oh, Chris liked our post.
It's our Nasha.
All right, here we go with scene 1. Right after what happened at the end of last episode, Will is being rushed into the lab in an emergency room situation on a gurney, kind of like an ER, but it's the lab. And he's screaming and writhing in pain. Joyce is just running down the hallway with him. Somewhere else in the lab, presumably at the same time, Hopper has been stripped and is just being hosed down and scrubbed with brushes after coming out of the tunnels. And back to Will, Sam and the other staff are taking vitals and rushing around. Will says it hurts everywhere, like it burns. And Dr. Sam says, check for burns. And they take his shirt off and they see nothing as he just continues to be in what looks like uncontrollable pain.
It is nice that they literally picked up right where we left off because, at the end of
Yeah.
that last episode, so many questions. Is Will going to die? Is this the end of Will? Actually, it's a good thing they started here.
Yeah, and presumably if you're binging them, maybe 30 seconds exists between the end of episode 5 and the beginning of episode 6. So you might not even notice that you're in a new episode.
True.
The way they've done it. All right, we cut to Steve and Dustin now driving down the road at night. Remember, they got in the car together outside of the Wheeler's house. Dustin is recounting to him how big Dart has grown now. Steve doesn't quite understand the severity of the situation, and Dustin reminds him that this thing ate his cat. They arrive at Dustin's house, and Steve grabs the spiked bat from his trunk. They walk over to the cellar doors where Dustin had kind of hockey stick slapped Dart in the last episode. They walk over and nothing's happening. There's no noise coming. The doors aren't shaking. Finally, Steve just opens the door and gets brave enough to walk down the stairs. Dart's nowhere to be found. Steve goes deeper and deeper into the cellar. He finds another massive molting skin, way bigger than the one we saw even in the last time that it happened, and that was bigger than the time before. He picks it up with his bat, and it's just dripping and gross. He tells Dustin to join him, and Dustin goes down, and Steve and Dustin both reach the end of the cellar space, like the dead end of the cellar, but they see the back wall has been dug through, and a tunnel continues on indefinitely from the cellar. As they shine the flashlight through the tunnel, the camera zooms backwards through the tunnels further and further. It finishes panning out to an overhead shot of Hawkins at night as we hear Dart scream in the distance. Opening credits.
Let's back up briefly to even last season if we have to. How well do Dustin and Steve actually know each other? What do they know about each other up to this point?
It's a good question. Several times I think people have referred to him as Harrington. So I think with just being as popular as he is, I assume he kind of has a presence at the school. Like people just kind of know who he is.
Okay.
Um, are you at Hawkins Lab? It looks like you're walking
Shh,
down the.
don't tell people that. Yes. It's top secret.
So yeah, I mean, obviously him being Nancy's boyfriend last season, kind of, at least they were kind of aware of him. But yeah, I don't think that they have had any personal interaction or relationship that we know
Yeah,
about.
I don't really understand it other than at the time at the ending, obviously Steve and Nancy were dating, so all of Mike's friends by proxy know who Steve is. But it just starts with such familiarity right here. Like Dustin just so casually, tells Steve that his plans this night are about to change. And like, it's just a very casual, like almost a friendship they have. Like maybe,
Yeah, it could be too that because of what happened at the end of last season, Steve was a part of it to some level at the buyer's house.
hmm
That maybe that core group of them, Jonathan, Nancy, Steve, the four boys, 11, like they all kind of have this kinship,
Yeah.
even if they don't know everybody as intimately as others. Yeah, but I agree. They're very familiar, and it's not the last time we see these two together in this episode. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Yep. So Dart
Um,
has tunneled out and he is long gone.
yes, yeah. I mean, now the tunnel has another outlet underneath the Henderson house.
Yep. We had a little technical difficulty. We got scene one and two out of the way, but now we're going to pick up after the opening credits. What do we got, Nate?
All right, we're back at the buyer's house, and vehicles approach from outside, and we recognize lab agents begin searching the buyer's house and photographing all of the map drawings with like Polaroids. Then back in the lab, Joyce is at a conference table with Dr. Sam and all the other doctors. We assume they're real doctors.
Mm-hmm.
They are asking Joyce about how long it's been happening and saying they should have brought him in. So she was saying, well, it's been, just since the other day in the field. And they were like, well, you should have brought him in. And she was like, I've been bringing him in. And she's angry that she's been bringing him in, and Will has been saying for a long time that something is wrong, and the doctors have done nothing, in Joyce's opinion. And she's kind of getting belligerent with even Dr. Sam, saying, "Be patient," you said. Those were your words. Um, Defending kind of why she didn't bring him in over the last couple days.
Yeah.
She finally demands that Will be transferred to a real hospital. Sam finally says, well, that's not possible. And one of the other doctors assures her that they are giving Will the very best treatment. Finally, she's at the end of her rope and she grills them all, kind of stands up and says to the entire room, what are you treating him for exactly? Can a single person in this room tell me what is wrong with my boy?
Yeah. On the one hand, we feel really sorry for her because Will's just gotten worse since he's been rescued from the Upside Down last year. However, we all know that it's nothing, even I think Joyce knows, it's nothing that even a normal hospital could treat. This is not, even though we talk about viruses later, this is not a normal, this is a supernatural problem that Will has.
Yes. And we agree with her that they couldn't identify a diagnosis, for example.
Sure,
Like,
sure,
you know, she's just, I mean, as a parent, I can totally relate to the idea that like your kid is suffering and it seems to be suffering worse and worse as time goes on. And yet the people who you've consulted to help him are just continue with a story of like, well, it'll get worse before it gets better and be patient. And at some point you just kind of snap.
sure.
Well, then we go back to Murray's, and Murray is making copies of the cassette recording, and he and Nancy and Jonathan are packaging them into mailing envelopes. One of the folders is being mailed to the Chicago Sun-Times. They celebrate their little packing party with vodka, and Nancy and Jonathan decide to stay the night at Murray's, and they ask for separate sleeping arrangements. And Murray is famously very confused and says he reads them like a book and leaves the sleeping arrangements up to the two of them as he retreats to his own room. He kind
Mm.
of grills them and seems to kind of nail exactly, even getting down to identifying a Steve in the picture. Well, Jonathan and Nancy are now in their own rooms, upset, both individually upset at Murray's read on them. They both get up the courage to come out of the room, but when they see each other, they kind of commiserate about how wrong Murray was about them, and they go back to their own rooms. Jonathan was just like, "Yeah, he was so drunk." Eventually, Nancy gets up again, but when she opens her door, Jonathan is already right there at her door. And they make out and they retreat into Nancy's room, and the door closes. We can only imagine what happens. Um, and The cut to the next scene is hilarious as Erica is playing with her Barbie and He-Man kissing on the bed. So I won't go into the next scene, but
Yeah.
she kind of finishes what happened behind closed doors with her toys.
Oh, He-Man, you're so strong with your muscles. Uh, yeah. I mean, we'd all been watching a lot of tension between Jonathan and Nancy for a long time. So in some ways, this was a long time coming. And then again, Murray is just he is this comic relief. He's just one of the most interesting characters right now. Like he's I don't know. I can't even remember what happens because it was, the first time we watched this was years and years ago. So I'm I'm looking forward to seeing more of Murray.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to watch him totally read Jonathan and Nancy perfect. I mean,
Hmm.
to where he's saying to them things that we think as an audience,
Hmm.
and having them react to him saying that is like therapeutic for us. We're like, well, that's what we're all thinking too.
Yep.
So the fact that they're like in their rooms, kind of like, what does he know about me? Saying,
Yeah.
just so angry about how accurate he is. And then it does lead to them finally getting together. Uh, and it's funny that Murray didn't even really play an active role in it. All he did was just read them like a book and then go to bed.
Yep.
And they kind of finished it themselves.
That's right.
All right, back at Lucas's house, Erica is playing with her toys, but then Lucas busts in, and Erica makes fun of Lucas for being too young to play with the toys. And Lucas tells her to stay out of his room. Erica says, then tell your friend to shut his mouth. And as she's explaining what she means, she's talking about code red, code red. Well, Lucas realizes what that means, that Dustin or somebody was trying to get a hold of him, and
Hmm.
Erica just shut the radio off. Lucas is like, oh no, he runs into his room and calls Dustin. Dustin finally tells him to meet him and Steve at the junkyard because Dart grew again, and he's pretty sure he's a baby Demogorgon now. That's what Lucas missed on the radio. Lucas is like, Steve Harrington? And Dustin says he'll explain everything when he gets there. Second time that Dustin has said, hey, just do something and then I'll explain everything later.
Yep. I mean, this is Dustin confessing to a lie, number one, right? Like up until this point, uh, no one had known that he kept Dart longer or found him and then re-hit him at his house. So Lucas is probably number one shocked that Dart's still in the picture and not lost. And then number two, why is Steve in the picture? Like obviously Lucas is understandably surprised at this as well.
Okay, Dr. Sam then at the lab enters a room with Hopper, who's like vomiting into a corner. Dr. Sam says it's good news. He's been given the green light, and they give him one of the Tyvek suits, and they tell him there's something you should see. So Hopper barely recovered. They enter an elevator and descend to the portal room. Sorry, from the portal room. They go down, they start there and they keep going down. As they descend, the portal goes so much further down than we've previously seen. It's
Mm.
just like hundreds and hundreds of feet of this rift. Dr. Sam is explaining to him, and I'm going to quote him here, all living organisms develop defense mechanisms against attack. They adapt. They find some way to survive, he says. As he and Sam reach the bottom, there are so many workers around as Hopper sees the epicenter of all of the tunnels, kind of where all the tunnels meet
Mm-hmm.
underneath the lab. He says, it's been spreading, growing beneath us like a cancer. Hopper says, why don't you burn it? And Dr. Sam says, there's a complication.
That's an understatement. There's a complication. Uh, yeah. How to describe what we've already seen about this portal versus how much bigger it is. It was already a creepy 20-foot high wall with a gash in it to this other dimension. But then as this elevator descends, it feels like we
Yeah.
drop 20, 30, 40 yards into the earth, and this portal is just absolutely massive. So yeah, this is not good news for Hawkins.
Yeah. It is like tenfold. You're right. And it's the exact same underneath. It's just so much more of it.
Mm,
All right. In the lab, as Will sleeps, Joyce explains all of the secrecy to Bob surrounding Will.
hmm
Bob and Joyce talk about how their family isn't normal. Bob brings up the idea again about moving to Maine. Joyce, he says, well, that probably makes that sound really crazy. And Joyce goes, that doesn't sound crazy to me at all. And then Will wakes up, but he does not recognize Bob in the room.
Yeah, we immediately know that something something in Will has changed, and this is more bad news.
Yeah.
We could even see it on his face that
Yeah.
he's just a little distant, a little confused. He's not all there.
Yeah. And it's interesting that Bob now seemingly has been let in on everything. He's no
Hmm
longer kind of on the outside, wondering, naive, blah, blah, blah. We don't hear everything that Joyce says, but some of the things that Bob says back to her indicate that he knows everything now, or at least
Right.
most things.
Yep.
Um, one of my favorite scenes back at Murray's, it's the next morning now. The three of them share breakfast as Nancy and Jonathan have very awkward kind of tension from the night before. They're not looking at each other. Murray is loving the awkwardness and is just looking at them directly in the eyes. He says something to Jonathan, which I won't say here, but you should watch the episode for the double entendre because it's classic Murray. Nancy calls her mom finally to lie about where she's been. Karen tells her that Mike and Will are together, but Jonathan has not been able to reach his mom, and he kind of shrugs it off, probably just at the matinee or something. We don't really know how worried he is, but he can't reach Joyce, obviously. And they leave, and Murray gifts them vodka, says for your travels, and then hands him a bottle of water and says to water it down and then tells him if you need anything, don't. Don't ever contact me again. And slams the door and they leave Murray's.
Yeah, this whole show is a master class in lying to your parents. Um, I don't think kids could get away
Yeah.
with it these days with cell phones, and we know where people are at all times. But yeah, a master class in lying. And I don't honestly don't think Murray's serious. I think Murray just doesn't want to Murray doesn't want people to know where he lives and what he does. But surely, if
Yeah.
Jonathan and Nancy need something, they'll reach back out. I mean, gee whiz.
Yeah. He's just such an enigma that it really is fitting for that to end this way. Like there's no hospitality here. He's just like, here's some vodka, here's some water, have a good life. All right, Lucas rides his bike way out of town to Billy and Max's house. And we assume it's far away anyway. Billy is just lifting weights to loud rock music while he's smoking, drinking beer. And Lucas uh not rings the doorbell and Billy won't answer it. Finally, he screams at Max. She answers the door and is like worried that Lucas is there. And Lucas says, I have proof that what I told you was real. So Max very quickly goes outside. Billy is suspicious, and when Max comes in, he starts to interrogate her about who it was, and she just says, "No, some Mormons." And she was out there for a while, so she goes talking to ones. Uh, but Lucas sneaks around to the back of the house with his bike, and Max sneaks out of her bedroom window in the back of the house, and her and Lucas ride off together as Billy is kind of searching the house, suspicious.
Yeah, we're thankful the two of them didn't get caught by Billy on the front stoop or front porch because I mean, Billy, if Billy's even drunk at
Who
home, who
knows?
knows what he would have done to Lucas. So it's also interesting that without Dustin's permission, Lucas is bringing her to see this thing, you know? Lucas is really just bringing her on the other side of a big secret now.
That's true. I
Yeah.
think Lucas is sort of defending himself that he's like, I told you all this stuff and you don't believe me, so I'm gonna kind of redeem myself in that, but then also
Hmm.
feels like maybe Max is gonna be useful to the party.
Hmm.
She can be their Zoomer. Back at the lab, Dr. Sam examines Will after he didn't recognize Bob, and uh, he Will knows his own name, but he doesn't recognize Dr. Sam. Hopper asks about him, and he doesn't recognize Hopper, doesn't recognize Bob still. Dr. Sam asks Will about what happened last night, and he says, I remember they hurt me. And he asked him to elaborate, and he said, no, not those people. The soldiers hurt me. He says they shouldn't have done that. It upset him. And Will shows him the drawing of the shadow monster. Sorry, Dr. Sam shows Will the drawing of the shadow monster, and Will says, yes, it hurt him. Dr. Sam experiments by bringing in a small sample of the vines wriggling around in like a tank, like a little tank, just maybe like a 12-inch piece of vine. And a guy lights a butane torch and starts kind of lowering the torch towards the vine. And Will reacts in pain. At first, he's like, it stings a little in my chest. And then as it gets hotter and they get closer to the vine, Will is just screaming in pain. Finally, Hopper stops them. Uh, Out in the hallway, Dr. Sam explains to Hopper and Joyce, look, our best guess is some kind of virus that's actually communicating between the hosts. He calls it a hive intelligence. He's like, viruses don't normally do this. They have intelligence, but they don't really communicate between hosts. He assures them finally that they are going to continue to run tests and see what they find.
Yeah. This scene was again, it was hard to see Will in such uh mental, anguish and confusion. He did remember who Mike was, barely, his own best friend Mike.
Yeah, he said my friend. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but this concept of a virus infecting things and it having a hive intelligence is a fascinating concept. Like that whatever is in the underground can start infecting people
Terrifying.
in the real world, and who knows what it's going to accomplish.
All right. Now Dustin and Steve are walking on the railroad tracks, kind of meandering very, slowly as they drop raw meat on the railroad tracks. Share some stories about girls. Steve's advice is to act like you just don't care. Like, just let them come to you. Steve eventually says that Dustin and him are talking. Steve eventually says that Nancy was different than the other girls. And Dustin admits that he is trying to impress a girl, Max. He doesn't say her name, but we know who he's talking about.
Hmm.
Uh, Dustin at one point attributes Steve's success to his hair. And Steve is like, no, 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 it has nothing to do with that. But eventually, Steve does kind of let Dustin in on his secret hair routine, which involves Farrah Fawcett spray. And Dustin thinks that that's hilarious. And Steve's like, if you tell anybody about that, I'm going to kill you. They continue walking down the tracks as we see they kind of pass a spot where we see a marker flag from a previous episode where Hopper was marking these slimy trees.
Hmm.
So they are in the vicinity of where that investigation was. As they continue walking down the train tracks.
I I don't think that we are led to believe that Steve has any siblings, but we every scene we have him, we love him more, and he just acts like a big brother to these kids for no real reason
Yeah.
other than he just seems like a good dude. So that was a nice a touching scene between he and Dustin sharing his hair routine.
Yeah, and we get the impression that maybe this is maybe why Steve was so popular. He wasn't just attractive, but he even with all of his, antics from season one, at his heart, he really is a good guy. And
Mm,
we even saw him defending, you know, Nancy and so forth. So it's not a huge leap for us to go from where we thought about Steve last season to where he is now. He
mm,
hasn't really changed. He's just kind of shed some of his maturity, but
hmm.
I totally agree. We hope that he is going to have some part to play uh, in this. All right, Hopper is now outside of the lab in his truck after this whole ordeal, and he's trying to signal in Morse code, but there's no response. He grabs the radio and apologizes to what we find out to be a totally empty cabin, and how he's not mad. He's, very kind of emotional, and he just says, "I'm sorry. I'm not mad. I'm just sorry." He's very emotional as he apologizes. He doesn't want 11 to get hurt or especially to lose her. He says, "I'll be home soon," but 11 is not there. Hopper's talking to no one.
Yeah, we definitely feel for him here, especially he's still coming off of maybe feeling like he's dropped the ball as an adoptive dad here and there, being a little harsh, too harsh here and there. So this scene, we absolutely feel for him, and it's very believable how upset he is.
Back at the lab, doctors are comparing brain scans from Will's head over the last few days, and they show three, and there's an obvious growing of some kind of abnormality. They highlight it in red. And the last one is like, this was from a couple hours ago, and it's like pretty much his whole brain. Dr. Sam asks for ideas, and the other doctors essentially tell him that they've been delaying the burn, but they can't delay it anymore. And Dr. Sam is like, and what if that kills the boy? And one of them says, quite frankly, if it kills him, then it kills him. But we just can't keep waiting. And one of them says, Will's probably not going to survive anyway. So
Hmm.
they should just continue with the burn to stop the spread. Dr. Sam's not okay with that answer, and he doesn't say anything. He just leaves. And they ask him where he's going, and he says, "I'm going to go think."
Yeah. The whole situation needs a miracle on both fronts to
Yeah.
not, I mean, they're trying to save Hawkins and save Will at the same time. And right now those two goals are opposed
Yeah.
because of his uh contracting this virus, if you will. Like it's a lose-lose situation right now. So,
Yeah. And I think this gives some credibility to your idea that Dr. Sam really is a good guy.
hmm.
He's not old and impersonal here. He's not okay with an answer that would be like, yeah, well, if it kills this boy, then it kills this boy.
Yeah, it's true.
Uh, they really are trying to solve a real problem or two real problems, like you said. And he's going to take some time to try to figure out if there's a third option.
Yep.
Back in the lab, Joyce is very impatient.
Mhm.
Um, she's in the room with Will. She's just like, where are these doctors? Bob tries to calm her down. She finally just gets up and leaves and is going probably to find Dr. Sam, but she just runs into some guards that are blocking a doorway and is kind of confronting them, trying to physically get past them. They're restricting her. And from his bed, Will catches them like kind of in his view and just watches, and there's this like kind of weird vision that he has of them. It's not like his own vision. And he has a flashback to the burn. Um, he's interrupted by Mike, and Will's like, I saw something, and I have an idea of how to stop him.
Hmm. It's almost like Will had like a fever dream. Like it was like a
Yeah.
hallucination, but we're led to believe that what he was seeing was based in some sort of reality. So, but the fact that he comes out
Yep.
of the fact that he comes out of this hallucination with a solution, that's interesting. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah. And almost looks like if you're familiar with Lord of the Ring, when Frodo puts the ring on, there's kind of that
Mm,
like shadowy kind of vision. It was kind of similar to that.
yeah.
And yeah, who knows what he saw, what his idea is. We will find out. Dustin and Steve finally arrive at the junkyard. They empty the rest of the raw meat in a huge pile on the ground as Lucas arrives from the other direction with Max. Lucas and Dustin talk about why Lucas told Max everything. And Lucas says because they need as much help as they can get, is what he said. And Lucas is like, don't worry, she didn't believe me anyway.
You know, we're feeling for Dustin here because, Dustin's got a crush on her too, and he's the underdog in this situation. He's not getting Max's attention like Lucas is, but so far it doesn't seem to be coming between Lucas and Dustin as friends.
Yeah, they have so much time together in their party, and Dustin, even with all of his feelings for Max, still holds the mission of the party, up above his own kind of desires because even he's not willing to say, "Oh, that's okay. Tell her whatever you want. Maybe it'll make me look better." He's
Uh-huh.
like, "Hey man, why did you tell her everything?" So
But
Lucas is still thinking practically like, well, she can help us.
but Dustin also can't be too angry because he's also the one that kept this secret, a secret that's
Yeah.
now got out of hand and is trying to possibly kill them.
Yeah, and don't pretend like Lucas doesn't know that either. Like you've kind of put us in this position, so I went ahead and made an executive decision because we need
Exactly.
all the help we can.
Hmm.
All right, so now Jonathan and Nancy, fresh off of Murray's, arrive back at the buyer's house, and they're in the house together, and they see the vine map everywhere for the first time. This is the introduction that they have to this whole thing, and it is literally on every square inch of this house.
Hmm.
Jonathan finally picks up like a Polaroid cartridge from the ground.
Hmm.
He shows it to Nancy, and he says, "I don't. I don't shoot Polaroid, so someone else must have been here."
Hmm. We're that we don't get much there, and even though we know what's going on, we don't we don't think that Nancy and Jonathan are thinking. We have it gives us no clues as to what that had to have made Jonathan and Nancy feel like. Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, do they think that bad men came and took the family away and raided the house and then took pictures? Who knows what they're thinking about this?
Yeah, other than just Jonathan had some investigative skills.
Yeah.
Okay, back at the lab conference table, uh, Will is looking over all of the photos of the vine map that they took at their house,
Mhm.
the buyer's house. They've been laid out all on this huge table, and Will is just kind of walking around the table looking at the map, kind of this proxy for the actual map at the buyer's house. One of the doctors is kind of in a rush. It's Dr. Sam is like, just give him time. Will finally points at a spot on the map, kind of in the corner, and says, there. They ask him what that area is, and Will says, I don't know. I just know he doesn't want me to see there. I think it's important. And it looks to be maybe like a convergence of where some tunnels come together.
Hmm.
Soldiers then calling them soldiers as Will did, gear up at the lab, and we see kind of a back and forth montage of the lab soldiers getting ready for their mission at the lab and the junkyard where the other kids and Steve are preparing for their mission.
Hmm.
Kind of a classic 80s montage of grabbing weapons and putting suits on. And then at the junkyard, they're like rolling barrels and they're dumping gasoline in a trail, blah, blah, blah. Soldiers descend to the tunnels in the lab with cameras and weapons, and a radar screen is seen on the control panel, and a dispatcher tells them where to go as they're kind of navigating the tunnels towards the spot that Will identified. They
Hmm.
move kind of military style through the tunnels as the kids and Steve in the junkyard board the abandoned bus, which has now been clad with like makeshift armor, and they shut the door. And then soldiers at the in the tunnels are deep now into the
Hmm.
tunnels.
Yeah, the feel of this scene is that number one, the dispatcher guy sitting at the controls is not taking it very seriously. He's like, he suspects, they're all going to find out that Will's crazy and there's nothing down there.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Steve and the kids are ready for like worst case scenarios. Like they're ready to do hand-to-hand combat and catch one of these things on fire again whenever it shows up. So it's two very different locations, but two different feels of what we think is about going to happen.
Yep, that's exactly right. Um, After that, we cut back to the junkyard portion of this, and it's dark, and Lucas is the first to kind of stand watch at the top of the bus fort. Just a bunch of fog as he looks out in the distance. Max in the bus asks Steve about what they're fighting, and
Hmm.
Dustin gets upset. And it's just like, why are you here? If you don't believe us, just go home. Not even willing to entertain her kind of disbelief or her doubt. Finally, Max just like, I don't need to take this, and she joins Lucas kind of up at the top on watch.
Hmm.
Steve tells Dustin, he's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Just act like you don't care. And Dustin's like, I don't. And Steve is like, right on. Max up at the watchtower with Lucas says, the fog kind of reminds her of the ocean. And Lucas is like, do you miss the ocean? And she explains about her parents being divorced. She says her stepbrother is angry and takes it out on her. And she says she doesn't want to be like Billy, although she knows that she can be. It's a much longer conversation, but that's the gist of it. And it's a
Hmm.
little personal. She kind of apologizes to Lucas, and Lucas comforts her like, "Hey man, you're cool and you're different and you're super smart and like totally tubular." And they share a moment. Uh, Lucas calls her Mad Max, and Max calls him Stalker. Like, hey, you're not that bad, you know. And they're interrupted by a growl and a distant image of what looks like Dart, but it's not taking the bait that they set out all that meat. So Steve has the idea immediately to just go outside and lure him personally, like when maybe he's sick of cow. He tosses Dustin the lighter and tells him to be ready, presumably with the gasoline trail they made in the montage. Outside, Steve kind of readies his bat and approaches Dart. Quickly, Max and Lucas realize that he's surrounded by multiple darts, and they urge him to come back to the bus. Dustin's like, abort, abort, as
Hmm.
he's being surrounded. Steve kind of realizes it. He gets a good shot on one of them with his bat, but runs back to the bus. The what we're going to start calling demo dogs try to bust into the bus. One of them reaches the lookout ladder on top that's not shut at all and is about to enter the bus from above, but then suddenly it kind of looks off to the side and they just start retreating. We hear them all growling and snarling as they run away off in the distance, terrifying. And Steve is like, they're going somewhere.
Again, Steve, just the hero of the moment, taking swings at these things with his bat, protecting the kids, putting himself in danger to do that. Um, it's another scene where, okay, we like Steve that much more. He may be a little too full of himself or confident in his abilities to kill supernatural beings, but
Yeah.
again, he's putting himself in between the kids and harm's way. And then yeah, sure enough, as if they've been hailed by some sort of frequency or something, but they just turn tail and run back towards probably the same
Yes.
location.
I think the other thing about this scene is Lucas is now pulling way ahead in the race for Max. I mean, whether or not Dustin is trying to do the Steve treatment to her or really is just frustrated, her and Lucas have this very vulnerable moment at the top of the thing, and Dustin is still, you know, it's ringing in her ears still.
Mm.
Like, if you don't believe this, just we don't think Dustin's very much in the sweepstakes anymore for Max's heart.
Nope.
Uh, all right, back in the tunnels out of it, radar screen. They enter the graveyard room that we saw Hopper was in before, and Hopper recognizes it on the monitor, and they say, "There's nothing here." Over the comms, they hear the dogs approaching quickly and growling and snarling, and the soldiers say, "We've got some kind of fog moving in now." As we see Will in bed trembling, and he says, "I'm sorry." Mike and Joyce ask him, "What do you mean?" And he says, "He made me do it," or "it made me do it."
Hmm.
I told you they upset him. They shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have upset him. And Mike says, "The spy." On the monitor, the dispatcher says, "We've got company," as we see other dots approaching quickly. Mike and Bob try to break past the guards to warn everyone that it's a trap off of Will's statement, but the guards won't let him through, and Will says it's too late. We see a demo dog lurch out of the fog at a soldier in the tunnels, and the comms in the camera, at least the camera, goes to complete static, and we hear gunshots coming from the panel on the control panel. The soldiers' flashlights go out one by one as they're overtaken by the dogs, and Sam bows his head. They see on the radar all of the dogs leave quickly out of the room down one of the corridors in the tunnel. And Will says, "You should go now. They're almost here." From the portal room, we hear and then finally see the kind of hand or paw of one of these demo dogs reach up from the shaft. In credits.
Couldn't have seen this coming. Like again, this is pushing our boundaries of what can happen in this show. And so, like, why haven't these demo dogs found this exit into the lab before? Like, okay, now they know that this exit is here. Um, yeah, and it's a the Will, the actor, the little kid, he does such a good job because every scene Will is in here, you can't really tell if he's sorry as Will the kid, or is he speaking on behalf of this shadow monster? Like you can kind of see his conscience bouncing back and forth between, I'm sorry, he made me do it. You shouldn't have upset him. It's just like, wow. Like this kid's just coming and going from who's actually talking. It's amazing.
Yeah. To your first point, it could be that Will being kind of possessed by this shadow monster has given the bad, the bad guy, the shadow monster, or whatever's controlling these demo dogs, has given them additional information as to where these tunnels lead, where they go. I mean, Will himself is at the lab, so they don't really explicitly say that, but that's a possibility. And I mean, we are thankful, I guess, to the extent that they were pulled away from the kids in the bus because they wouldn't have been able to fight them off with a spiked bat.
Mm-mm.
Uh, but we don't. Yeah, I mean, there's more than just like three or four of these things. I mean, the dots on the screen. There was like 12, 15, maybe more.
Yep.
And they made very, very light work of men with like guns.
Right.
So
Yeah.
not good.
It also makes you wonder at what stage of growth some of these are. Like, are they all still in their demo dog stage versus are some of these full-size creatures that, the ones we saw that took Barb and the one that took Will, like, who
Oh yeah.
knows who knows how many there are and like if they're still in the process of growing and like I don't know.
So
That's a mystery.
you're assuming then that, and this is interesting because I don't think I've thought of this, that these demo dogs, their final form is a full Demogorgon.
That's a good, yeah, I don't know.
I hadn't thought I mean, I guess I've kind of thought of them as a separate creature, but it would make more sense kind of in the canon of the show for these kind of demo dogs to continue to molt and grow and then become kind of what we saw at the end of season one and kind
Right.
of that full, 7 foot tall biped.
Yes, going from all fours to
Yeah.
eventually uh
Kind of like an advanced evolutionary
yeah, Demogor
form.
Demogorgon erectus.
Demogorgus erectus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
fascinating.
gosh. I don't I can't think ahead and even I don't even know what's going to happen the next episode. I'm like
You're lost.
completely lost. Who knows?
I mean, this could absolutely be the end of Hawkins as we know it. I mean, there's a too thin of a veil now between these two
Hmm.
worlds, and we're not sure how or if they're going to recover from this.
Yeah, like what if there are as many of these demo dogs as there are citizens in Hawkins? Like that's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, and how quickly they grow. Like it doesn't. I mean, I don't even know how they reproduce, but they went from a slug to a full grown man eater in like 3 days.
Yeah.
So I there's definitely not enough spiked bats in Hawkins, I can tell you that.
That's a good point. A funny point. Uh Surely during this next episode, you know, everybody's gonna have to unite, like a brotherhood of, uniting against this common enemy. Like definitely nothing gonna be like about a lost sister. Like it's time for the brotherhood, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that they're just going to go right into what is going to happen in Hawkins, and we're not going to depart at all from that storyline.
We haven't
So
yet.
we're going to go find out what actually happens, and we will see the rest of you for that recap right here next on the Hawkins River.
Thanks for sticking with us.